awesome. I appreciate you guys for all jumping on today. Kind of want to get things rolling. It's Thursday. It's cold in part of the country and warm in the other part of the country, right? So we're all living different lives, but we're coming together. And we're coming together to try to help each other find, pivot, adapt, evolve, and grow, right? Small business. So the GoDaddy community has an Open We Stand group on LinkedIn. And we do these weekly meetups where we bring people like James Welbes on. He's going to be talking to us today about some of his journey. And they give us insights and perspective on how they're finding excitement and they're evolving and they're growing. So my name's Adam Griggs. I am the co-founder of Clarify. I'm your moderator today. Before we get started, I'm going to have the team kind of introduce themselves and the community members that are here today. And then we'll let James introduce himself. So Rachel, would you like to introduce yourself first?
Yeah, good morning, good afternoon. Rachel McCool from GoDaddy. I'm a community manager at GoDaddy, run a number of community programs, and just really appreciate hearing small business stories. So can't wait to hear from James and what you're up to.
Yeah, my name is Jonathan. I also work here at GoDaddy. I'm on the social media team. I work on engagement. So everything from day-to-day conversations to facilitating conversations with care to building strategies. It's all on social.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Manny Larcher. I'm the owner of Collaborate and Elevate, and we help connect others with opportunities. And I also run an agency, Stopwatch Creative, as well. Thank you.
Yeah, a lot of similarities on the call today. I think we're going to have a good conversation. So I appreciate you guys for being here and being willing to jump on and support community and James. James, why don't you give us a little backstory as to how you came to love BS? I love the hat, man.
Yeah, thanks. I'm full of BS. My backstory is random and has nothing to do with web design or branding at all until you go back like 20 years. I built my first website when I was like 12, and I just was copy pasting HTML from existing sites and figuring out how HTML works. And then basically ignored web design for decades. I went off and joined the Navy and came back home and had all sorts of jobs in all sorts of fields. I sold insurance at one point. I worked for Rockwell Collins, and it wasn't until I had finally found a job that checked all three boxes. It paid well, I enjoyed doing it, and I was good at it. And I got laid off after 6 months, and so that was really frustrating. And I spent another 6 months courting another company that was very similar, really cool company. Really thought I had the job, didn't get the job, and started to wonder if there was actually anything out there for me that would ever check all three of those boxes again. And then I never, ever even entertained the idea of owning a business. That always just seemed like something that, like, yeah, there's some people who do that, but I'm a work for some company until I die kind of guy. Until all that happened, then I started to think, I kind of know how to build websites. I wonder if I could turn that into a business. And so that's where it started. I got back into web design. So much had changed since I was 12. CSS was a thing, JavaScript was a thing. I had no idea what those things were, and so I had a lot of learning and catching up to do, and particularly with WordPress as well. So that was it's been a fun 3 or 4 years, just learning tons about web design.
Oh, that's awesome. I mean, all of us have crazy backstories and backgrounds, right? And you're very interesting is the fact that you were in the military and you served, and then you kind of went to work for a corporation and you thought that was going to be it for you, and you fell in love with that. And then you were kind of pushed into a corner as to where can you find something that checks those boxes, like you said. And I think a lot of us fear the availability to actually own our own business, right? Whether it be in web design or something else. So I think that's fantastic and courageous of you to take that on. I'd love to kind of hear a little bit about what your passion is. I mean, BS brand strategy, obviously that's your baby. Tell me a little bit about why that checks the box for your love and excitement.
Yeah, so first of all, web development is not my passion, and I've discovered that over the past 3 years. it's, it's not awful. It's just a skill that I have, and I can do it, but it's not what like gets me going in the morning, and apart from that, I'm not really liking where the web development industry is going. The competition is skyrocketing. You can't swing a dead cat around here without hitting a web developer. The DIY solutions are blowing up, GoDaddy, Website Builder, Wix, Squarespace, all these different solutions out there that are making it increasingly easier to build your own website, and basically making web developers almost obsolete. It's to the point where the only web developers who exist are going to be the ones building the DIY solutions. And so I've been thinking, I kind of want to get out of that before like I have to, like, while the getting out is still kind of good. And I got turned on to this YouTube channel called The Future by a guy named Chris Do. And he says, he calls the channel where he teaches the business of design. So he's a designer. I'm not. He's a designer, but he talks about business a lot. He talks about how to grow a design business. So he's not in there teaching you how to use Photoshop or Illustrator. He's teaching you how to run a successful, profitable business. And he talks a lot about branding, and he's had a lot of really great guests on his show, like Marty Neumeyer and Fabian Garhalter, who just really did. I just watched these videos and I got all fired up about branding, and I realized that's something that a computer can't do for you. Wix is never going to come up with a brand strategy app that does brand strategy for you. Like, they can build your website, sure, but you're going to need a human being there who understands branding and how to build a brand. So I've been spending the last few months just diving heavily into this idea of branding.
Yeah, I think the start of a business and putting a website out there is almost the inevitable, right? We all need websites. We have to exist so that people know that we're real.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it's impactful to see that you took what began to be your passion, which was, creating the starting point for brands, right? You're putting people online and you're giving them visibility, and being a web designer was good. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I feel like, coming from your voice, correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like it's the pathway or the segue that's leading to the decision to make something bigger. I know when we were connected, you said that you pivoted and launched Apex, which is your brand strategy agency. And, from my understanding, you've had some success already. Have you had any clients that you've helped kind of either recreate their brand or build from the ground up?
Yeah, we actually, I'm getting close to finishing up a client project right now. She reached out to me a few months ago. She is a guitar instructor, and she has been going by the name CR for Cedar Rapids, CR Guitar Girl. And that's been sort of her whole brand is she's a girl who teaches guitar in Cedar Rapids, and she was doing really well for herself. She's done a good job of positioning herself as the quality option, not the cheap option. And she also fantastically navigated COVID. So a lot of other instructors in the area apparently were just like floundering, and some of them just gave up, and they're like, well, we can't do this. And she's like, no, Zoom is a thing. And so she's teaching people guitar over Zoom, and she's figuring it out, and she's navigated that really well. And she's been just growing. And she reached out to me because she is growing, and she also is pivoting a little bit. She's going to start hiring some people to teach, drums and vocals and various other instruments besides just guitar. And so the name CR Guitar Girl is not going to work anymore, because it's more than just the one girl, and it's more than just guitar. And she also is, she's the high-end option in Cedar Rapids. You don't go to her because you don't have a lot of money. You go to her because you really want to learn an instrument really well, and she wants her brand to reflect that. So it's been a really fun process. We started with strategy, of course, and I have a lady named Lynn that helps me with that. And then we moved on from the strategy phase to the design phase. And I have a guy named Devin Green, who's a fantastic designer. And he worked with her to come up with a new logo and a website design. And I'm currently in the development phase. We're pretty close to being finished with building the website based on his design. And then, so I'm hoping within the next couple of weeks to be completely ready to launch. she's already got a new sign up on her business with Devin's logo. It looks really awesome. She's still renovating the space because she's growing so quickly. She bought the space next to her at Lindale Mall, and she basically just tripled her studio space. So she's a busy gal right now.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a good story because I mean, there's a lot of things in this story. Number one, COVID hit, right? It hit everybody. It was a worldwide pandemic. People had to pivot and shift and evolve or figure out something else. And before, she was the guitar girl doing her own thing. And because of this, it kind of pushed her in a position of adapting and finding ways to connect online through Zoom or whatever means. And ironically, that sounds like it opened up her vision because now she's able to reach more people and utilize team members, and you're helping her build a brand around that capability. And that's awesome because she can still do what she wants to do, which is focus on being the best guitar instructor there is, the guitar player, right? But she also can have a business that thrives and grows with her. And the other part of your story that I love is the fact that you have a team. You know, you have the strategy that you're coming up with, but you've got people that are creating these designs and these logos, and they're helping her get started. So it's awesome to see two different teams come together to find their voice online and rebrand and rebuild that. I mean, we've got some people on the call today, like Jonathan and Mandy, that work specifically in those, you know, corridors where you're finding voice and engagement online, or you have a, you know, collaboration community where you're trying to build through your community and team. So I love that.
Yeah, you don't.
Sorry, I just wanted to jump in really quick. One of the things that I really liked that you said is about how, oh my God, I just had it. Oh no, it was about AI. It was about AI and web development. And one of the things that I love so much about engagement is that, you know, you can obviously build bots, you know, you can build bots to help facilitate conversations and make sure that they go to the right stream. But I don't know about you, but when I am reaching out for customer service, or if I need help with something, like I want to talk to a person. Like the robot can help me get to where I need to go, but I really want to know that the other person on the other side of that is able to have empathy, right? Is able to understand that there's a human element on the other side of this. That's not just, I want my money back, but there's a problem and I need another person to help me deal with that. And I don't mean to, you know, to step over another train of thought, but I just wanted to go back to that. I thought that was really powerful. And I think it's so important, especially when people are thinking about, what do I want to do with my career? And I loved when you said, like, you have a skill in web design and you're good at that, but you found your passion in doing that. And I think that's so important for a lot of people to realize, is especially if, you know, you're in a place where you don't know exactly what you want to do, you can still, you know, you don't have to wait around to figure that out before you pursue something, right? You can go after things that you're good at, and then from there you can grow and you can really say, okay, you know what? I've been at this for a couple of years, but this is what I really want to do. And I love that you found that that space in, like, it needs to be human driven, because I really identify with that as well. You know, obviously we have that crippling fear of what robots are going to be in 20 years. But it's really important for me in particular to hear that come from you and a web designer, about how important it is to keep, you know, these things like branding and engagement strategies that you just can't automate. You can't fake that. And I think that really speaks to the authenticity of the work you're trying to do.
Yeah. Branding is all about connecting with humans. So you can't really trust a computer to do that. And you can't, you know, and it's not like, I know there are some AI solutions out there. I'm not even super worried about AI. It's more about the you know, the DIY drag and drop things that are just making it easier for a person who wants a website to go and throw a website up for themselves. The challenge is getting people to understand that their business is going to be so much more than just a website. You know, my branding package, the website is basically an afterthought. It's like the focus is the strategy and getting the brand identity correct. And then once we get finished with that, okay, James, hurry up and build the website so we can launch. And that's kind of how it should be. Like, the website should be, the website shouldn't be a big thing. It should just be like, if anybody knows anything about like UI and UX, you know, if you notice the UI and the UX, it's probably a bad thing. Like, you want to get your task done, do whatever you're trying to do, and you don't really want to think about the website or the app or the UX. You don't want to be poking around trying to figure out how to do stuff. So I just really feel like the website is such a small part of a business's, whole brand package.
I love the perspective. I feel like when you have a person like CR Guitar Girl who has an identity that's built in, she's emotionally attached to being the best at what she can do, and now she wants to kind of cast a wider net. It's a delicate process to do that. So it's cool that you're able to empower her to make that change and transition. And I feel like, especially in our world, owning a business, you get attached to these identities and you worry that it might be muddling the water. And finding somebody like you that helps solidify the identity and keep the value there is important, because even though she's offering drums or bass or piano or whatever through other instructors, you just never know how much respect she might be getting from those family members, and she might actually bring more clients and bring the next great guitarist to her storefront because of that. So you just never know, and that's cool. It's powerful.
Yeah, one of the great things about working with Angie is she, whether intentionally or not, she did a good job of building her own brand. So rebranding her wasn't all that difficult. A lot of people, I just recently saw on LinkedIn, some guys recommending, he was giving advice that you shouldn't even bother with trying to develop your brand until like 5 years into your business. I was like, what kind of asinine advice is that? Like, what a lot of people don't understand is you have a brand whether you know it or not. You have a brand whether you choose to influence it or not. So if you wait 5 years to build your brand, you're going to discover, oh crap, I already have one, and it might not be the brand that you want. And so I'm not saying you have to go and drop tens of thousands of dollars into brand strategy if you don't have that kind of budget. But from day one, you should be thinking about your brand. You should be asking yourself, don't look at your brand and think, how do I feel about this brand? Because who cares? What you need to do is look at your brand and say, how do these people feel about my brand? When they see my logo and they hear my business name, when they look at my product or my service, what do they feel inside? And if they're not feeling what you want them to feel, then you have a brand problem and you need to put some effort into that. And I think Angie did a good job of that. She didn't have to, she wasn't going after a completely different kind of target demographic or anything. Her target demographic was people who understand the value of her skill and are willing to pay for it and want to learn guitar. And all she had to do is just broaden that a little bit to people who want to learn drums or vocals or keyboard or whatever. So I think her project has been great to work on for that reason. A lot of other people are rebranding because they kind of have an oh crap moment and they're like, man, we're just not really communicating, to the right people in the right way, and we need to fix that.
I'm so glad that you said that people build brands whether intentionally or not, because that's true. I mean, the lifestyle we live and our persona reflects the brand that we carry. The interaction we have with our customers and how we treat them, how we retain them, how we build loyalty is a brand. And I feel like it does go both ways. So I kind of want to go back to that conversation. Like, some people will intentionally try to force a brand that is not appropriate for their business or not appropriate for their persona, because you want to try to fit into some niche orientation or some other area that you think is going to be explosively profitable, and it's not right for you. So how do you help people find, I guess, the direction they should take, whether it be starting with a small brand identity and growing it organically, or forcing it into a position of authority?
Yeah, that when you read books from people like Marty Neumeyer and Fabian or Chris Do, all these people who are talking about branding every day and they're doing really well at it. They're charging ridiculous amounts of money because people see the value in what they do. They all agree that authenticity is very important when it comes to your brand. Like you said, if you're trying to build a brand that's not really appropriate to, your own personality or whatever, you're just going to be fighting it the entire way. Your brand should be as authentic as possible, because people will eventually find out if you're being fake. People hate fake fakeness. And you know, all the research is talking about, it's showing that people's buying decisions are based so much more on how they feel about your brand, and whether they feel like they belong in your tribe versus the actual product itself. And so, you know, if you can build a loyal tribe of people, those people will continue to buy your product, even if it's a little bit more expensive than other products, even if it's more inconvenient than other products, and even if it's not as good. I mean, if there's a feature or two that you're missing, but they really vibe with your tribe, they're going to stick with you. And that's not to say that product quality isn't important. It's obviously very important. It's just showing, the studies are showing that our buying habits are just changing a little bit, and what we care about, we care a lot more about the brand than we used to.
By the way, I love this conversation because I think a lot of times people who are solopreneurs don't think about their persona and how that relates to their brand and their customers. And James, you're absolutely right. I mean, there's so much competition out there now for all business, right? Unless you just happen to develop something brand new. And you know, that happens as well, but most people are competing in a space with others. And so like, how do you differentiate yourself from other people? And it's all about you, right? Do people connect with you, and do they want to work with you? And you know, it's really interesting. It's in all walks of life. So a great example for me is like looking at medical professionals that I want to work with. Like they may all have the same skill sets, but do they have I call it bedside manner. Are they people that are passionate and caring in their approach? And if they're not, I don't want to work with them. Or with salespeople who like approach me, if you know, if you can still go into a retail store and it's quite obvious that they really don't care to interact with you. They're just doing it because they feel like they should. I don't really want to buy from someone like that, especially from like a high priced item, like a car or something like that. So, but you know, even all three of you guys who are on like your services that you provide, you know, people want to like you and work with you and feel like you care about them and that you want to do the best for them. And I love that you help people with their brands, James. I think that's so critical because especially when it comes to online presence, you got to stand out somehow, and you got to understand like what is your value that you're presenting to people, and how do you differentiate that value from others?
Yeah, Apple figured that out a long time ago. You know, when you look at their advertising, even way back in the day, their advertising has almost always focused on Apple rather than the computer or the iPhone or the iPad. Their commercials are not, hey, look at this new iPhone. It has this awesome NVIDIA processor and the screen resolution is this and it's got this feature and that feature. Their commercials are always more about, hey, look how cool this person is with their iPhone, or look how these people feel using this Apple computer. And they occasionally will throw out a commercial to remind you, yes, our phones do have 5G like all the other phones, but for the most part, their commercials are not focusing on features and specs of their products. Their commercials are trying to connect with their potential customer on an emotional level, and it's worked, I mean, wonders. I mean, people stand in line for hours to get the new iPhone that they don't even really need. They already have the last model iPhone. It's a perfectly great phone, but these people wait for hours in line to get the next phone because Apple has built such a great loyal tribe of people. And it started probably from the day Steve Jobs came back. I feel like it's always just been that way. Apple's been years ahead of everybody in terms of branding. You look at HP, Lenovo, Samsung, Dell, Asus, Acer. Those are all, in my opinion, the same thing. I can't think of anything that differentiates any of those brands from each other. They all just make Windows computers. They make cheap ones, they make expensive ones, they make mid-range ones. Their commercials are all about the specs. Apple is like the only computer manufacturer that is just radically different in my mind.
No, it's so true. And we make decisions based on emotion, and then if necessary, we defend them based on logic. And I think that's the same for business. And I feel like it goes a step further. You know, you think about the gal you helped out there in Cedar Rapids, and her brand is going to resonate that way and hopefully bring people joy, and it's going to reflect. But what you did for her is going to be the story she tells her friends. And she's not going to go to her friends and say, here's a checklist of 15 things that James helped me go through that really transformed me. It's going to be, check out my new brand. Look how great I'm doing. This guy over here did it for me. You guys should just go talk to him, which is awesome because that's powerful. And that's what drives community and creation. And it elevates us all to succeed so much better than we ever could have if we did just look at the line items, the templates, dot the I's and cross the T's. So stories sell and stories tell. So yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah, for sure. Loyal customers not only buy your product, but they love to tell people about your product. So they're, referrals are the hardest kind of lead to get, but they're the best. Whether you're in a service-based industry or a product-based industry, it's the best kind of lead you can get. Someone else is out there basically selling for you for free.
Yeah, no, I love it, man. Branding is telling a story, and that's you've got a great story, James, and I appreciate you for sharing your perspective on that. It's important to tell a story that's not going to sacrifice your identity or your value, because we got to get paid. We've all got mortgages. There's nothing wrong with that, but
yeah,
having the position that you have, which is bringing excitement, passion, and energy into that, taking that segue out of web development, going into brand strategy is awesome. So I appreciate you for sharing that with us and letting us into your world.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate the opportunity to share that.
Yeah. So, I want to be conscientious of everybody's time. We kind of, we're at the end of our timeline here. So does anybody have any last minute thoughts or questions for James before we let him go?
Just want to say, great to meet you, James. Thanks so much for sharing. It's been really awesome to hear your point of view and hear your background.
Absolutely.
Yeah, great meeting you, James. I'm all about bouncing, ideas off, and even clients. There's certain things too. So I sent you a request, so I'd be happy to kind of, schedule time and learn more about you.
Awesome. Very cool.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I appreciate you for being here today. If there's anything that you want to leave the audience before we leave, like one action item, let's throw that out there, and then where can they connect with you?
Yeah, if you hear nothing from this entire video but one thing, hear the fact that you have a brand, and whether you want to admit it or not, whether you try to have a brand or not, you have one. And so just try to, everything you do, especially if you're a solopreneur and you're wearing every hat in the business, you're doing marketing, sales, product development, everything you do should be done through the lens of your brand. And try to remember that your brand is what other people think about you, not what you think about you. You can find me in a few different places. I would probably just go to LinkedIn. I have a Facebook business page that I neglect, and I'm actually paying someone else to manage it for a while. But I've been really getting active on LinkedIn lately. And some of the stuff I share comes from my brain, but a lot of it's coming from people who've been doing this a lot longer than I have. And so if you're interested at all in the world of branding, you can find me on LinkedIn, and I'll turn you on to some people like Fabian Geierhalter and Marty Neumeyer and Chris Doe. Absolutely check out the YouTube channel, The Future. It's the word future, but without the E at the end.